Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
I have just received this notice, hot off the press. It was sent to my office that tomorrow, the 1st of March, and for the entire month, March is National Stop Blaming White People Month. Accept responsibility for your own bad choices. Amen. Here comes Kate Smith and God Bless America, followed by a patriot with our Pledge of Allegiance. Call in, call in, call in. And a good morning to you. I'm Zeb Bell, Zeb at the Ranch, and of course with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you. Oh my goodness, it's the last day of their founder celebration. Better get in there today. And also our thanks go out to some of our great advertisers like Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, Nick Greenwell and the crew at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. Right now, let's go to the phone line and have our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning.
Well, it's going to be you or me, mister.
Well, guess who's going to do it?
I will.
Okay.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Right now, we're going to scoot to the weather forecast, brought to you by Roger and the crew at K&R Rental, 256 South, 600 West of Heyburn. Right there, smack dab, easy to see, easy to find on the Burley-Paul Highway. And don't forget, Roger's optimistic. He said spring is coming. Yeah, it's right around the corner. Okay, and get ready for outdoor cleanup and all the work that involves. They've got all the lawn and garden equipment that you need right there at K&R Rental on the Burley-Paul Highway. Give them a call. They're there early in the morning at 7 a.m. 7 a.m. at K&R Rental, 678-3122. Right now, here's the weather.
Fairly nice day for this final day of February. Here is your weather forecast for Zeb at the Ranch. We are expecting partly sunny skies today. Winds out of the west right around 5 miles an hour and a high of 33. Tonight, 30% chance of snow showers after midnight. Cloudy conditions. Winds are going to be picking up, low of 23. For tomorrow, we do have a 50% chance of snow showers in the forecast. Accumulations of less than an inch possible. Cloudy skies with a high of 40. Up that to 70% chance of snow for Thursday. Accumulations of maybe 1 to 3 inches possible. And it's going to be breezy as well. And we are looking at a low right near 33 for Friday. Snow showers mainly in the morning, high of 38. And for Saturday, slight chance of snow showers in the forecast again with a high of 35. That's your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
Sounds like we might get some more angel dandruff. And I know you and I are probably sick of that. I know I am. I can't stand anymore. I know the people are going to say, we need the moisture, we need the snow, but when you're on those pogo sticks, it's not easy to walk on. K&R Rental, 256 South, 600 West of Heyburn, brings you the weather forecast right away in the morning at 8:06 on Zeb at the Ranch. And don't forget to give them a call. Stop in. They've got all the equipment and tools that you need. K&R Rental on the Burley-Paul Highway, 678-3122. We've got a lot of things going on this morning. We've got Dave Beagle from Indianapolis, Indiana. We've got Mark Miller from Washington, D.C. We've got a gentleman on the air by the name of Stephen Super's got a brand new book out. And then at 10:32, you want to be listening because we have the man from the Gun Owners of America organization, Michael Hammond. And we've got a full plate here this morning. Really interesting guests. By the way, don't forget Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Now, they also get there early in the morning at 7:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. For all your heating, cooling, and electrical needs, that's not brag, that's a fact. They've got everything there with the most highly trained and experienced people serving you. So remember, Ramsey Heating and Electric at 678-0459, located at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, where they provide warm, toasty winters and cool summers. And one more before we get started on our list of things to talk about this morning. I want to mention Dennys Restaurant. We've been with them for quite some time for our Zeb's Lunch Bunch. What a great, great place to have lunch bunch, and they are so friendly, so kind, and so helpful, and the menu choices are delicious. Absolutely. At America's Diner, Dennys Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley, and also another location at 291 Pole Line Road in Twin Falls. I urge you, and I mean this, to go in. You'll thank me for doing this. Dennys Restaurant, anytime, all the time. Great food, 611 North Overland in Burley, the home of Zeb's Lunch Bunch. Higher learning? Well, maybe not. When I heard this story, it made my knuckles get a little wider. Great educational institution? No, maybe not. San Diego State University. They have taken it upon themselves with their hatred for this president and this administration. They are teaching a class on how to impeach President Trump. It's almost like we're at a point in our colleges and universities to where we're spreading teaching and the professors are railing about how we can have anarchy and chaos. Some of you won't like that, the way I said it, but it is true. They're training young militants and millennials that if you lose an election here in this country, just go out and be a worthless crybaby and dispose of your enemy. Get rid of them. And this is the philosophy. We don't like that. We don't like you. We're going to throw you out. And that's exactly what's happening in this country. And there's so many cases, the University of Wisconsin, and we're talking about Drexel University, we're talking about major names, UCLA, we're talking about USC, we're talking about colleges and universities that are absolutely teaching our young people to be militant insurrectionists, and it's disgusting. By the way, I've got to tell you that this story, it made me so mad, and it's so disgusting. You have heard about the MS-13 gang members that just wantonly killed 2 young teenage girls back in New York State. And it's so maddening to think that our court system is going to mamby-pamby and basically baby diaper these kids because they are teenage killers, basically. But yesterday in court, and I'm going to ask you, the audience, how would you have responded to this? I know that the court system and the officers of the court probably would have had to come and handcuff me to a chair. But during the court proceeding yesterday, for these killers with MS-13, gang members that had killed these parents' daughters, it's hard for me to say this, really. I get so emotional. These killers turned around in court and laughed at the parents for their loss. Oh, punks. worthless little punks coming in here from foreign countries and expanding the hatred and the killing with the gang MS-13. And they turned around in the courtroom and laughed at the parents who had their daughters slain by these young punks. How would you react? Call me, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. The world has evil, and that was shown yesterday in that courtroom. Let's not forget our friends at Pomerell Place. Oh, my goodness, living at home and the risks that seniors face. Think about it a little bit, and maybe you'd better call Pomerell Place, a place for senior living, and find out more about what they offer. And they're located at 1301 Bennett Street in Burley. The number to call is 677-8212, 677-8212. And don't live alone. Don't worry about the safety hazards and the injuries of living alone or not having the proper meals and missed medication. Oh, these are all worries. Well, contact Pomerell Place. It offers the ability for seniors to maintain their independence both safely and comfortably. The number to call, 677-8212, Pomerell Place, a place for senior living. Caller, I'm going to be right there. Don't you dare go away. I just want to remind everybody, too, about Dinos Septic Service. Yes, they do the job that you and I don't want to do. It's true. Septic tanks pumped, backhoe services, and sewer and sink drain lines cleaned, liquid waste removal. They got that big old truck that says smells cargo on the way. Dino's Septic Service in Rupert. The best fast fare friendly service. And the number to call, 436-6526, or in Burley, 678-1638. Dino's Septic Service, serving you. Caller, good morning to you.
Well, good morning, Zeb.
Yes, sir.
You know, a lot of this crap that's going on is being given the green light by people like Ron Emanuel, de Blasio, and they're allowing this millennial sheep who are out there demonstrating against our government. They're getting the green light from people like these, too.
Well, I'll tell you what Rahm Emanuel... Tony, I'll tell you what Rahm Emanuel is doing in Chicago, and maybe you heard about this. He is way down in the poll numbers. The city of Chicago said this guy's a jerk and they don't want him back in, but now he's implementing a new source of getting votes. He is going to be giving a key card, an ID card, to illegal aliens, and now it's found out that with that ID card for the city of Chicago, they can go vote, and guess who they're going to vote for?
Oh, more Democrats. You know,
yeah.
I see the same thing happening here in Twin Falls, the way things are going. This place here is going to be another sanctuary city like we've got going on around the country, and it's disgusting. How can people possibly get the right to vote if they're not citizens?
Well, back it up one step further than that, Tony. Not only the right to vote, but have any rights at all. When they come in here and absolutely slam the door behind them and say, I'm here, what are you going to do about it? You're going to give me exactly what you have as a citizen, and I don't want to hear any more guff about it. They are playing the tough guy coming into Dodge City, and we're sitting back and not doing anything about it.
You know, President Trump has a lot more power than he's really using. He could put a stop to this. This is an attack on the Second Amendment and our Constitution and everything, giving people like this the right to vote.
But do we care? Are we up in arms about it? Are the people in San Francisco or L.A. or any other part of California that now is not only a sanctuary city-state but a sanctuary state in itself, do we care? Do we fight back? Do we pick up the pitchforks and storm Pennsylvania Avenue? No, we're taking it like a big sponge. We're absorbing all this garbage.
People have gotten too soft, and they're giving their rights away because they're too sidetracked by football, baseball, basketball, TV, and everything else. They think this country can't fall. but it's going to.
Absolutely. And we're just aiding and abetting it by not standing up and saying, enough is enough, slam our foot or our shoe or our fist on the table and saying, you're not going to do this one more minute. It's over.
Well, I don't know where this is going to end up when people are going to wake up. All these young millennials that are like a bunch of sheep are going to be running our country in another 5, 10, 15 years, and God help us all.
I agree. Tony, I always appreciate talking to you. And go give Mary a big kiss. Tell her we said hello.
I sure will.
All right. Thank you. Gina, are you over there at the station?
Yeah, I heard it too.
What?
Oh, did you hear the crackle?
I did, but I don't know where it came from. And I know this time it didn't come from me.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. No, I was going to ask you about your son.
Okay.
Okay. I have a story about not only your son, but other kids, and I think you're going to have a little reflection on this, so stand by.
You bet.
Don't forget the 23rd Annual Bull Sale, and this is with our friends at the Sheridan Ranch, Cordell and Patty Sheridan. Oh, my goodness sakes, one of the West's most outstanding bull sales is going to be at the Burley Sale Yard this Saturday at 1 o'clock, and you don't want to miss this. 80 bulls are going to sell, 30 coming 2-year-olds, 50 yearlings. Woo, free delivery up to 300 miles. These are good cattle. Had Cordell on the air the other day. Number to call, 824-5531, or go to their website, SheridanCattle.com. I'm telling you, these are outstanding bulls. Don't want to miss this sale, boys. 23rd Annual Bull Sale, Sheridan Ranch, this coming Saturday at the Burley Sale Yard. I have maintained on my program for a long time that with the changes in our society becoming so liberal that we are turning our children, especially our male children, into wussies. I have a story here that when I first heard it, I could not believe it. Over in Britain, they have now passed an edict at some of the major schools over in Britain that kids are banned under the guise of severe punishment from the schools not to touch snow.
What?
You can't make this up. The schools have got together over there and they said, oh no, someone might make a snowball. Someone might make a snowman. Someone might make a snow fort. Someone might be an angel in the snow. Can't do that. Snow is dangerous. Don't go out at recess, and no one is allowed to bend over and touch the snow.
Wow. I mean, that takes away the whole point of being a kid in the wintertime.
Yeah, but what are we teaching our kids? That they have to live in a bubble, you have to stand erect, and you can't do anything. You have to just absolutely move like a robot and do as you're told. We're not letting them be kids and growing up like you mentioned a minute ago. But snow? Don't touch the snow there, Herman. My good. And then they're punished if they do.
Okay, so this is the first time I've ever heard of this. So
Yeah.
what is the reasoning behind this? There had to have been some sort of massive event.
Oh, the school superiors, superiors are worried that someone's going to throw a snowball and hit someone. Someone's going to roll a big body of a snowman, and it might freeze and then fall on someone's foot. They're afraid of lawsuits. They're afraid of discriminatory liberals, coming after them and saying, "Oh, my child got hurt. Johnny threw a snowball at little Hermie, and look at him. He's got a welt on his cheek." I mean, this is ridiculous. And the more you dictate to things like this, you can darn sure bet the farm the kids are going to do it because they're not going to be told not to.
Right. Now, this is what I will say. At Kennedy School, I know that they're not allowed to throw snowballs because there's rocks, in the playground, and they're afraid that the rocks are going to get into the snowball. So with that aside, they can make snow angels. They can play in the snow. They can make snow forts. If they want to make a snowman, hey, go for it. Because you know what? These kids need to get outside and play and be creative. And snow is provided by Mother Nature whether we like it or not. We can't protect our kids from it. And if little Johnny happens to slip and fall and maybe bruise a knee or he gets struck by a snowball and maybe gets a black eye. That's all a part of growing up. How are we going to teach our kids how to be strong if we're not going to allow them to be hurt?
Okay, but look at this. Go a step further on this. And it really became apparent this week. I go through about 2 or 3 different newspapers every morning before this program. And I don't know if you've heard or read of the syndicated cartoon strip called Pickles.
I've heard of it. I've never read it.
Okay. It's about, basically the cartoon strip is about 2 grandparents that are having their thoughts on life and also their grandson, okay? But basically this whole week in the cartoon strip Pickles, they have talked about the playgrounds of today as compared to when they were children going up, down the slides, going around on the merry-go-round and everything, and how absolutely sanitized playgrounds are today. This is another part of the sanitization of America that I think is turning our kids into little wusses that are afraid to get their hands dirty. They're afraid to go out in the real world and try something, and they're afraid that if they get a paper cut, they're going to bleed to death. I just absolutely feel that we've been too protectionary over our children.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I protect my son to a point, but you know what? If he wants to get out on the jungle gym, which remember the jungle gyms, at least back in my day, they were made of all metal. They weren't plastic.
Yeah.
They were all metal. You fell, you were probably going to hurt something, but you know what? That's all part of growing up and being a kid. I remember tetherball.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody else remembers tetherball. Yeah, you could get yourself a rope burn or get yourself smacked in the face, but that was the whole point of the game.
Well, a couple of the things, I'll tell you what, I'll tell you more about this. I got to get a commercial in here, okay? And then I'll talk about when I went to grade school, and they still circled the wagons at night back in those days, I'll tell you what we did at recess. And we were really wild and harem-scarum kids back then. Don't forget, Burley, and for some reason this next commercial falls right into my plans of talking about how we were injured in grade school. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Oh my, you got a sprain, you got a strain, you got an accident that you're recouping from, or a surgery, they can help. Believe me, Nick Greenwell and all of his great physical therapy staff, they know all the exercises. They have the only hydrotherapy pool of its type in the area. My goodness, what are you waiting for? Run, if you can, to the telephone and make an appointment. 678-1191. 678-1191. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. When I was in grade school at Curtis Mill School, and I know I have some listeners of old school buddies back in the Midwest.
Boy, hopefully they call in and can add on to your story.
Well, I know one that's listening, Mike Heiliger, back, and I think Mike's living in Iowa right now. But anyway, our merry-go-round, we used to have contests. To get the merry-go-round going 100 miles an hour, we had about 4 or 5 guys in the middle, running, pushing that thing, getting it going. And then we would swing out and see who could fly the furthest.
We used to do the same thing.
Okay, the swing sets. We had a huge, tall swing set. I'm talking about swings where you could get up almost to the point where you could make the clouds give rain. And you're up there going back and forth. And then we had a contest again to see who could. You do. Jump out of the swing and go the furthest.
Yep. And how many of you broke your leg?
One did, but that's minor. Anyway, we had a guy land on his face, and it really did a tremendous amount of damage to his nose. But that's not the point. And then we took a stick, and we would measure to see who went the furthest. Bodies were carried off of the field so we could mark the field. But, I mean, that's how we grew up. And you know what? All of us healed up. Sure, we had a few scars. But you know what? You can't take that away from kids.
No. And I grew up in kind of the same small-town atmosphere in Elk River. We had a metal merry-go-round. We had a metal jungle gym slide and swing set. Our goal was to either make that merry-go-round spin around far enough to see who would fly off.
Yep. Yeah.
Either that and or get sick, whichever came first. We also had to see who could get the highest on the swing set and maybe try and get it to go all the way around.
Yes.
Or jump off and see who could get the farthest. We had, the tether ball, and if you got smacked in the face, hey, that was an extra bonus point.
Absolutely. And you always shot at my school, there was a big old kid named Richard Ralph. He was 3 times the size of what he should have been in the 5th grade, and he was our target. And we just looked forward to nailing Richard with the tether ball.
Well, and remember dodgeball?
Oh, my, yes. And being that I was the slowest of foot because of my leg problems, guess who ended up with most of the bruises?
Exactly. But see, we are so afraid, and by we, I mean, I guess, my generation, we're so afraid that our kids are going to get hurt. But you know what? Let's revert back to when we were kids, and when we got hurt, we'd go home and they'd say, okay, Gina, or little Johnny, it's okay, you scraped your knee, you had a great day at school today, now get back out there and give it your best shot.
I know we got a call waiting, but I never got yelled at for getting a black eye or a bloody lip. I got yelled at because I came home with my clothes in tatters.
That's what I got in trouble for, too.
Okay.
So, I just don't get it. And parents, fuck it up.
Oh, amen. All right, I tell you what, I'll do a quick commercial. Don't forget every Monday we give a dozen cookies away with our dear friend Sophie's Chatterbox, 530 East Street, right on the square in Rupert. Don't forget they've got a fantastic restaurant over there, including a bakery. Oh, they can make all kinds of different wedding cakes, beautiful wedding cakes, and breads and pies and cookies. Oh, the list goes on. Sophie's Chatterbox on the square in Rupert. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, in our playground, we had pea gravel everywhere.
I know what you mean. Yes.
And we had a kid that was, he was about 3rd grade.
I'm having a hard time hearing him, Gina. Can you boost him up just?
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm getting some massive feedback from the phone line.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Doug.
Anyway, we had this slide that was probably 25 foot up in the air, big, tall metal slide.
Oh, yeah.
And he was at the top of that, and some kids were goofing around, and he got knocked off. Well, he fell clear down to the gravel. And, I mean, the teachers come running and picked him up, and he come back to class about 10 minutes after everybody else did. And he had a Band-Aid on the back of his head, and from that day on, he was called Cheerio.
Yeah.
Remember the Cheerio commercial?
I do.
Tough kid, eat your Cheerios.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that was his name all through school, was Cheerio.
Yep.
And, I mean, that's the way we were. The swings, like you say, you tried to get to where you could look up over top of that bar.
Oh, yeah.
On the swing. But we never had helmets when we rode bicycles. We didn't have car seats, remember? You'd be standing in the front seat and your mother'd slam on the brakes and you'd get hurt by your arm slapping across in front of you instead of, what you hitting the dash.
Did I ever tell you the story about the cream-filled, I'm trying to think of the name, maybe Gina can help me quickly, they're cream-filled Bavarian cream, pardon me? Bismarcks. My mother used to make Bismarcks for the entire school, all the grades. And one morning, going to school in the wintertime, she loaded them. Now, picture this. This is an old Nash Rambler station wagon, Dougie. And she would lay a board from the back over the back seat and onto the front seat. And then she would fill the bottom part of the back end with those Bismarcks and then lay a complete tray or two on top. Well, she's going to school, taking us to school, and my sister and I had to slump over in the seat just to make room for all the Bismarcks, and a farm truck pulled out in front of her, and she hit the brakes. That windshield looked like about 1 million birds had done their job on the windshield.
Looked like you drove through some seagulls.
Yeah, I never will forget that. She hit the brakes, and all the Bismarcks went right into the front end of the car. And those were the good old days.
They were. I mean, and we survived. You hurt your finger, you hit your knee, elbow, but you got up and it was no big deal. Nowadays, if you scrape your knee, they take you to the emergency room.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a guy by the name of Mike Carey went to our school, and Mike was always getting hurt. And I swear one day he had his whole leg cut off when he fell off the Ferris wheel. And all we did is said, Mike, here's some duct tape. Put it back on. And he was fine 3 days later.
Yeah, we've wussified the kids in this country. I mean, they don't know how much fun it was to fall out of a tree house.
Oh, yeah.
Or to, fall down on our playground with all that pea gravel. I don't know how many yards of pea gravel kids took home and underneath their skin the mothers had to pick out.
Amen. Well, it is a shame, but I'm just going to end our conversation by saying this. Do not touch the snow.
Right.
Okay.
We used to get in trouble for snowball fights, and the reason we did because some kids had put rocks in the snowball.
Yeah, we did that intentionally, too. I wasn't going to say that this morning, but I can honestly remember picking up a pretty good-sized little round rock and then building the snow around it and then aiming at the guy you didn't like.
Yep.
Thanks, Doug.
Survived.
All right, thanks.
Hey, everybody.
He's gone. Okay, hey, I got to pay some bills here real quick. That's kind of going back with a little nostalgia into our childhood. But Gina grew up, and as far as I know, has not had any ramifications or repercussions from her childhood. I did. Doug did. We all did. But now we're going to sit there and we're going to pat little Johnny and Susie on the head and say, now, for recess, you go out and stand next to the door and don't move, because this is what we call today fun.
The only caution I got about snow was don't eat the yellow snow.
Back in my day, I think it was welcomed. I got to pay some bills. I'll be right back. Calls are welcome. Hey, don't forget the Men and Boys Auction Service. Joe and the crew are going to have a great big sale this Saturday. It's going to be the Wade and Christine Miller sale, 11 o'clock, Filer, Idaho, 1937 East, 4000 North. Don't miss it. They've got tractors, trailers, farm equipment, irrigation items, supplies, and shop equipment, all kinds of goodies at this great big sale with the Bennett Boys Auction Service. No sale too big, no sale too small. For the Bennett Boys, they sell them all. Coming up this Saturday at 11 a.m., Saturday, March 3rd, over in Filer. Look for the signs. Be there at the Bennett Boys Auction. Let's see what else have I got. Oh, real quick, I want to remind you about Barry Equipment and Rental. Sales, service, and parts. We are so blessed to have them on the air. And our good friend Juan runs the Burley location at 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. Eli, big Eli's a-coming, 465 Addison Avenue West in Twin Falls, and then the Nampa location. Equipment rentals, they've got the largest selection of all the different equipment rentals in southern Idaho, and retail equipment sales, oh my, and a staff that knows. And if you don't know how to run the equipment, they'll take you out in the big sandbox out behind and turn you loose. Barry Equipment and Rental, sales, service, and parts, Highway 30 Burley with Juan, Addison Avenue West in Twin, and in Nampa. Barry Equipment and Rental. Calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Good morning, caller.
Morning, Zeb. Hey, when I was a little girl, we had a dress code, and you wore dresses to school. And if you didn't come in from the playground with a skinned knee and blood running down your shin, then you weren't cool.
Well, you're so much younger than I am. That was a different generation to where maybe it was higher class of teaching people how to be gentlemen and ladies. Back in my day, we were lucky to survive a 15-minute recess.
We were, too, and we had the giants and the gravel and the swings and those little girls with those bare knees, We were skinned up and proud of it.
Yeah, but back in even your day or my day, we'd get hurt, but we didn't cry. We didn't make a big deal about it. We didn't go, whoa, I want a Band-Aid. I mean, kids are not as tough as they used to be.
This generation, we've powders their behinds too long.
Well, I appreciate it, and you grew up to be a very nice lady, even though you got skin knees with your dress on.
That's right.
Okay.
Have a good one, Sam.
God bless. Thank you. I appreciate that. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. It kind of, in Gina's generation, basically below me, and then the other lady that just called, they're younger than I am, but basically the situations are the same. I honestly believe that we were a tougher child growing up because we weren't mamby-pambied. I think you'd agree with that, right, Gina?
I would agree, and I would also say that, you know what, I will take the brunt of the blame. At least Generation X should take the brunt of the blame because we are the generation that created all of these wussy kids.
Yeah, but I don't think you're doing it to your boy.
No, I'm not, but I think that, you know, it's my generation as a whole, and quite frankly, shame on Generation X.
Yeah.
And that's what I will say. You do have a phone call.
I appreciate that. Thank you, caller. Welcome to the playground. Get dirty, rip your clothes, get all skinned up, and enjoy life.
Okay. So when I was in first grade, we, of course, had the merry-go-round you're talking about. But we got going really fast, and I slipped, and I hit my chin on that metal bar.
Ooh.
Not only did I cut my chin underneath, but I bit my tongue so that I had to have 4 stitches in it to hold it together. I was back in school the next day, and I was back on the merry-go-round.
Absolutely.
And nobody said anything about we can't have merry-go-rounds anymore. And with the swings, yes, you would swing as far as you could, hope you could go flip it over, but then, oh boy, do you hang on when it crashes, or do you jump?
You know what?
And we still didn't ban anything from the playground. And in the wintertime, we were told, be sure to dress warm enough because you're going outside for recess, and that's what our teachers said.
Yeah.
So let's quit babying these kids today and let them get some guts and grow up to be strong people.
Adrian, I got to ask you this. You know, you brought up the swing set. When you reach the pinnacle of being right eye level with the top bar, you reach a point in your mind where you're thinking, do I check out of this motel or do I ride this thing to the finish? Because you know if you go much higher, you're going to wrap around that center pole and it's going to be absolutely life-threatening. There is a point right there, isn't there?
Oh, yes, there is. And when you go beyond that point where you think, oh, I'm going to get over, and you actually hit that bar coming down, and do I hang on to this swing and just take it, or do I just crash to the ground? Yes, I know what you mean.
You have been there. It's such a blessing to talk to somebody else that's been in that particular very dangerous, life-threatening situation.
Oh, listen, when we were little, it was even preteens. It was who had the most broken bones or bangs and bruises and came to school the next day and didn't complain. And yes, we had to wear dresses. In the wintertime, we were allowed to wear pants under them. In fact, told to do that again, like I said, so because we were going outside during recess to play in the snow.
You know what? I just love talking about this masochistic attitude we had, but we lived through it. Thank you very much.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Have a good day.
God bless you. I love this conversation because all of that we're saying is true. I mean, we did things back in those days that, honest to goodness, today, most teachers would pass out on the floor and turn completely white. They can't imagine letting kids do that stuff today.
You know, I'm sitting here and listening to the entire conversation. If teachers would realize and other parents would realize playing out on the, being out on the playground and doing these things, it's a lesson in physics and science. It really is. You go so far, you try and wrap that swing around the swing set, you're going to learn the law of gravity, right?
And you're also going to learn that maybe you weren't as smart as you thought you were.
Is that true? You've got another phone call.
You know, before I take this call, I got to get a weather in too, but like Adrian that just called, and you and me. Remember when you get eye level to that point where that seat on the swing absolutely started to quiver because you knew it was going over the top bar?
Uh-huh.
And
I remember that.
You reach the point where, just like she said, do I check out of this airplane and hit the ground without a parachute, or do I try to ride it out? I've been there, and I've made some bad decisions.
I think we all have.
Okay. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. This is now the new Magic Valley Playground Authority.
I see. Well, if you're going to take a weather break, that'll give me a little more time to chat with you.
All right, I will. I'll do that right now. I'll do that weather and get right back to you. Our weather is brought to you by Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, and they are located right behind the Minidoka Hospital, across from the emergency room. And the number to call, Dr. Pickup and Dr. Mitchell, for your hearing screening is 312-0957. They are really good at what they do, and they've got all the new testing abilities to help diagnose problems with vertigo, etc. Give them a call today, and that is Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Right now, here's the weather.
Well, and you're going to get it live right now. Partly sunny skies for today. A little bit on the breezy side. Winds out of the west, right around 10 miles an hour. We are expecting a high of 33. So for tonight, more clouds are going to roll in. We do have a 30% chance of snow showers after midnight. Cloudy, low near 23. Winds are going to be picking up. And they're saying new snow accumulations of less than a half of an inch. For tomorrow, rain showers in the lower elevations, snow showers up in the higher elevations, accumulations of about an inch or two with a high of 40. Increase that for tomorrow night, another maybe 2 to 3 inches in the higher elevations, 70% chance of rain or snow showers in the forecast with a low of 33. Right now we're sitting at 10 degrees here at the KBAR studios, and you've got 2 phone calls.
Okay, we'll take both of them in a minute. Thank you for the weather, Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. And the number to call to get your appointment, 312-0957. Callers, I'm going to try to treat each fair, and I'm going to give each of you 2 minutes. So go ahead. I've got a lot of calls waiting. Good morning.
Okay, well, the global warming thing isn't working right now, but you know the average temperature is always the mean of the extremes. And but, you know, Zeb, it's really sad that we've got to this point that the media and the liberals, particularly, you know, any kind of a disaster like the shooting situation, they immediately got to take their guns. And, of course, I've talked to refugees in this area that have come from Bosnia and so forth, and I said, well, what was the main reason why you people were subjugated? And they said, well, they got our guns. And once they get the guns, in this country, that will be refugees for, well, I guess someplace else. But, Zeb, it's really sad. The hallmark of a dictatorship, as you well know, is gun control. And once they get the guns, it's all over.
Well, that's
the last pinnacle to tear down this country, is to get our guns under whatever pretense.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, our politicians, you know, they counter, they're getting slowly but surely. This is exactly what's been happening.
Well,
and whether it's one kind of gun or another, but the red flags down there were so numerous. The FBI dropped the ball. The local police dropped the ball. Everybody dropped the ball.
All right. Well, I appreciate your call this morning, Adrian, and I agree with you. And later on this morning at 10:30, I'm going to have Michael Hammond with the Gun Owners of America, so be sure and listen to that and give him a call and ask any questions. Thank you for your call. I've got to get these other folks in. Thank you very, very much. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, they forgot. I haven't heard anyone mention the teeter-totter. On the playground.
Yes, you could really do somebody in.
And see who you'd work them back and forth until you could see who could buck the person off on the other end. And sometimes you'd fly way up in the air before you lift the ground.
You know, and there were a lot of guys that maybe would have been bass singers, but they turned into tenors because of the teeter-totter.
Right. Just thought I'd put that in. I hadn't heard anyone talk about it.
Hey, God bless you. I forgot about the teeter-totters. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You betcha. Bye-bye.
Have a great day. You know what? The teeter-totter could be your worst enemy's worst weapon. Do you realize that, Gina?
Oh, I so remember having my chin racked, I don't know how many times, by the teeter-totter, and it would, cut my chin or bite my lip. And there was a lot of times where somebody was a little bit heavier than I was that would sit on the other end, and, yeah, I didn't I was always stuck.
Did you ever see on the playground, like I go back to this kid we had, big old Richard, and he was about 3 times the size of the rest of the people in his classroom. He was huge, and he'd get on that teeter-totter, and he would just and it was kind of a game with some of these students his age or even older to see if he could literally throw them off that teeter-totter and shoot them into outer space. It can be a weapon.
It can be a weapon, and the higher or the farther you went, the better it was. Or what you would try and do is, have the heavier person on one end and stack as many people on the other end to try and level it out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we came up, and you've got to admit this happened in your school growing up, too. Kids can come up with they're better than NASA scientists. They can come up with the greatest ways to absolutely dismember their fellow students.
I'm telling you, physics and science.
There you go.
We've got a phone call.
Okay. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Hi. As I was listening to your conversation, I'm thinking about how today I don't know who, the teachers, whoever's in charge, are unhappy with how rowdy mostly boys are.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, you know what? Playing out on the playground is where kids got their energy spent. So when they came in from recess, they were willing to maybe pay attention a little more. And I think that cutting out recess the way they have these days is really a detriment to our children.
Yeah, and so many times you read stories, ma'am, about teachers and school principals that tell the class, now put your coats on, go outside, and there will be no horseplay, there will be no running, there will be no this, just stand there and visit with your other students. Holy cow, that's like putting a shorter fuse on a stick of dynamite.
Exactly. I mean, we used to play games like Red Rover, and Soldiers Up the Hill, and I'm just thinking they won't let them do anything.
And all this does is, in my opinion, wussify the kids that are growing up to the next generation. They don't know because they've never been there.
Exactly, and they're creating this problem themselves.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to tell you something, lady. If we get more snow in the next couple of days, look out. I'm going to throw a snowball at you.
Well, my daughter put a bowl out the other day, and we had snow cones, so there you go.
Have a great day. Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye. That's what we ought to do. Us adults ought to just really be a great example, and we'll all lay down in the snow and make angels, and we'll make snow forts, and we'll have an attack, and then we'll have snowball fights and everything. Let's go ahead and show these kids how to live.
Amen, as long as we don't do it in the dog park.
In the what? Never
mind.
I think I heard what you said, and I don't think I'd like to wrap that up into a snowball. However, I am thinking of a couple of people that I'd like to wish that upon. Thank you for that idea.
Hey, you are so very welcome.
Okay. Do we have another call?
No.
Okay, I'm going to tell everybody about our Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. And, of course, this is the last day of their big Founders Celebration in honor of a great gentleman, Mr. Les Schwab. And they've had really great tire buys. Oh, my goodness, they always do. You don't want to miss out on, like, the Road Control Touring AS starting at just $74.98. All-season design with a smooth, quiet ride. The best in brake service. Trained technicians that really know brakes. Front end alignment, shocks and struts, batteries, all of this and more. All 7 locations serving you and doing the right thing because it matters. Absolutely. Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, Daniel on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland in Burley. They are the best. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Woo! I didn't get anything accomplished that I'd taken notes on all morning. We got into the playground, and I was having too much fun.
I'm sitting there watching you on your web stream. I'm really liking that flannel.
You know, a lot of people make fun of flannel shirts. I've got a whole entourage of flannel shirts. This is one of my favorites, and it really fits good. Deanne and I realized that you can't wash flannel shirts and then put them in the dryer.
No. Hang them up to dryer. They're going to shrink.
Oh, yeah. Most of my shirts, I have a 36-inch sleeve length, like you can see. It fits perfectly, and it's nice around the neck and everything. But I went and spent about $100 last winter on some new flannel shirts, good ones.
Mm-hmm.
And you seen that midget in that circus routine? I'm sending them to him.
Oh, See, my dad grew up, of course, he was a logger, and so he always wore flannels. And, they are the best winter shirt. But, yes, depending upon it, because a lot of times they're made out of either the wool-cotton blend.
Yeah.
Don't put them in the dryer, or you're going to be sending them off to a midget in the circus.
Really, some of the shirts, I wished I had one of those shirts on now because I didn't know if you were watching or not, but where I wear a size 36 sleeve length, now it hits me at the elbow.
Well, you can make it a cutoff during the summertime, as long as it didn't shrink in the midsection, too.
Well, let's not go there, lady. You're being rude right now. I caused a lot of that shrinking myself. Thank you very much. We're going to take a break. We're going to take a break. And, by the way, we should say we wish our best to Damon. I know that he had to go in for some tests, and we certainly hope all is well. And Gina filled in. Great job. We'll be back in about 7 minutes with more Zeb at the Ranch. Don't go away. And a good morning, Zeb at the Ranch. How you doing on the last day of February, the 28th, tomorrow, the 1st of March. Hey, Zeb at the Ranch, I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you. And, of course, some of our great advertisers, including Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. We're going to have some good words, and then we'll be right back with our guest. Right now, these for Western Way Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Way Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Way Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Way Services.
Don't forget to get the jump on spring cleaning. We got to get a dumpster, put it out the back door, and fill it up. And then they'll, of course, come and get it at Western Way Services. They've got dumpsters in various sizes. Call them. Tell them what you think you need. 734-6969. Like I said, they'll drop it off. You fill it up. They'll come and get it. Always at your disposal. Western Way Services. You get a hold of them today. And don't forget, too, we got a great big bull sale coming up this Saturday. Oh, one of the best in the West. And that's, of course, the 23rd annual bull sale from the Sheridan Ranch, Cordell and Patty Sheridan. It's going to be at the Burley Auction Yard this coming Saturday at 1 p.m. Lunch will be provided at noon. Good lunch, too. 80 bulls to sell, 30 coming 2-year-olds and 50 yearlings. This is one of the best anywhere, anytime. Sheridan Ranch Bull Sale, Cordell and Patty Sheridan. Number to call, 824-5531, or go to their website, SheridanCattle.com. And also, real quick, I've got to gather things up here a little bit. I want to remind you there is going to be another, we're going to talk about these good folks. Don't forget that our friends at Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert. Oh, my goodness, Joel Heward and his family and his staff, they are there to serve you and your family in a time of need. And that's when there's the passing of a loved one. They are there to help you with the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. Please remember the number and call 436-5636. Hanson Mortuary in Rupert, and Joel Heward also serving you at Morrison Payne Funeral Home on East Main in Burley. It is Wednesday already, the last day of February, as I said, and Dave Beagle's been busy this morning sending me a bunch of emails and everything. Good morning, dear friend in Indiana. How are you, Dave Beagle?
I'm doing great, Zeb. How you doing?
Well, there is nobody I would rather have on the program this morning than you to tell us about this Supreme Court case that is going to decide whether the unions can force and coerce people to paying their union dues. If you would, give us some background on this story and also what you think is going to happen.
Well, this is a case that evolved out of Illinois with Janice, who did not want to pay union dues, and because he doesn't believe in what the unions use the money for, and also the fact that they they're going after and forcing people to pay, like home health care workers and that really, aren't union members, but the state of Illinois forced them to pay, and then it was relieved, and then the unions came after them. And by the way, my old union fight, the SEIU was involved in this years ago too. But anyway, Janice lost, and in the Seventh Circuit Court, and it was appealed to Washington, and it's Janice versus AFSCME, which is one of the biggest unions in the country, and they heard the oral arguments on Monday, and it was pretty interesting that this thing's pretty well split. 4 of them are on the side of unions, and 4 of them are on the side of Janice, and but the latest Supreme Court member, who was put there by Trump, Gorsuch, was silent the whole time. While the other 4 on each side were asking questions back and forth on that, he just stayed silent. And it's my belief, and in talking to some other attorneys that I know, that when this is voted on, probably sometime in late June, the unions will lose and Janice will win, and union members that work for the government across the country are going to have that opportunity to drop out and not pay union dues, which is good for them.
Dave, I'm a little naive about some of the intricacies of unions. I don't know even a pinhead of knowledge like you do because you've been involved in this. But when you have a coercive attitude of the unions saying, yes, Mr. Janice, or yes, Mr. Beagle, or Mr. Bell, you will pay. To me, that absolutely stymies our First Amendment rights, does it not?
Well, that's right, and that's one of the issues in this thing, and one of the big issues, and that's what Janice and his attorneys are, fighting, and I think it makes a lot of sense, and the unions are really trembling over this thing, and again, like I say, I think that when the vote comes out, I think Gorsuch will be in favor of Janice, and the unions will lose this thing now. And the other thing about Gorsuch, by the way, he has my book, and so I know he knows what's going on behind the scenes with the unions and what their real agenda is, and it's not an agenda to collect dues to help the membership. It's for their political agenda. That's where the biggest percentage of it goes to. But here's one of the things I'm concerned about. This is almost identical to what happened several years ago when Antonin Scalia, who was on the Supreme Court, died out in Texas. And it happened about the same time. They were looking at a case out in California, Friedrichs versus the teachers union, and the same type of thing. Friedrichs didn't want to be part of the union, pay union dues. And the court was split 4-4 in February as they talked about it and that. And but Scalia had made indications he was going to vote in favor of Friedrichs and the membership out there. And if you remember right, a month or so later, he died in Texas at the home of a Democrat rancher.
I'm not going to come out and say that there was an attempt right there to say that there was any underhanded or evil doings, but it sounded fishy to me at the time, and we really don't know all the information, I think, about Judge Anton Scalia's death. Are you intimating in some way, shape, or form that maybe there was something illicit there?
Well, yeah, because he was on a... what are the breathing things that they wear at night?
CPAP,
and,
yeah.
It was interesting that when they came to investigate and found him, his breathing thing was not attached, and he was laying on his back with his head on the pillow, and it just passed. Kind of strange that he wouldn't have hooked that up before he went to sleep. So, and I... my blog on that, I wrote that this needed to be investigated more, but it never was.
Yeah. Dave, what would be, in your opinion, the overall atmosphere or happenstance to unions all across the United States if the unions lose this case?
Well, they're going to lose a huge amount of members. I think they estimated in the federal government there's about 200,000 union members, and that the big proportion of them would drop out and quit paying union dues. So the unions are going to lose a huge amount of income and membership, and the unions only right now represent 11% of the workforce in this country.
Right.
And that's the government workforce, and about 5 or 6% is the private workforce. So the unions have really gone downhill, and this could really take them to the bottom.
Absolutely. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk to you about the businesses, the large corporate businesses in this country that basically have had their arms twisted behind them in a show of force, saying that they're not going to support the NRA anymore, and they're saying, nope, we're not going to handle anything as far as discounts, etc., and treating people that are honest and hardworking, innocent gun owners as if they're criminals. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think this is, the Democrats behind the scene trying to put gun control in effect and eliminate guns in this country. And the whole reason behind that is so that they can control the country. If the American people don't have a way to defend themselves, then it's easy for them to come after them. And this is what's happening. Unfortunately, the Republicans aren't having a lot of backbone right now, and they need to stand up and understand that some of these things we're seeing, and one of the things I wanted to talk about was the shooting in Florida. I believe a lot of this stuff is due to what the Democrats have put in place, and it's a way of going after guns and get the country to agree to take our gun rights away, our Second Amendment rights.
Well, I totally agree with that, and now more than ever before in my lifetime, I think there is a much larger threat looming with the Second Amendment. There's a much larger threat that we could hear a knock on a door in not too many days distant of people with the government saying we're going to come in and search your house, search your garage, we're going to go through everything, and confiscation of guns. I just wonder if the American public, and later on this morning, let me say this, I've got Michael Hammond with Gun Owners of America from D.C. coming on the program. But I just wonder if gun owners and the American public realize how dangerous this is for the government to talk about a possible confiscation.
Oh, I think a lot of Americans, there's a big percentage that don't have guns, and they don't really understand, the danger behind all this thing. And I'm going to be honest with that, I was not a gun owner until I was attacked by the SEIU back in 2007. And but when I knew they were at my house looking in my windows and beating on the windows, and they had Union thugs drive up and down the streets on Halloween and stuff like that, I at that point decided I need to be a gun owner and protect myself.
Right.
And and if you remember right, the SEIU, after I wrote my book, I found out they're communist, and they march in the streets of California with the Communist Party. I mean, you have to be able to protect yourself from people like this.
Well, we could turn very easily and literally overnight into a Venezuela, into a Cuba, or if you really want to go back, into a Hitleristic type of Germany. And when you give the government all the power, all the control, we're in trouble.
Well, I agree with that. And, this school shooting, I want to go back to it because I think you're going to find this interesting. There was an article on Freedom Outpost about the school shooting plot exposed. And basically what they're saying in this, this all started about 6 years ago in Miami-Dade County. And it was just south of Broward where all this took place. And the school district, this particular school district was struggling to succeed, as were a bunch of them in Miami. And understand, this is a very liberal area. And all the data painted a picture of failing school districts. And this particular district noticed that a large portion of their school population were being arrested at a higher proportion than the rest of their community. And they realized that if they could cut down on the criminality of their students, they would quickly improve the data coming out of their schools. With this in mind, the school district entered into a relationship with the local police force and conducted a deal that would ensure the police would stop arresting so many of their students and ignore what was going on. And this has contributed to the rise of violence and theft and gangs and guns and the shooting down there, all because instead of doing their jobs, because all the laws are in place to stop this stuff, instead of doing their jobs, they agreed not to do it anymore and let these people do whatever they want.
Yep. I think the program that you're referring to, I hold in my hand right now. I have a copy of it, and it was called the Promise Program. Isn't that what you're referring to?
I didn't see that particular, but, there was, in this particular article, there's about 7 pages in this article, and there's stuff from different areas talking about all the things. I didn't see Promise on it, but one thing that was bad about this is that the media never covered it.
Really?
And they never woke up to the people down there that all this crime was allowed to go on, and the police and the schools weren't doing anything about it.
Have you ever, in your adult life, heard of a more arrogant and ego-centered sheriff as the Broward County Sheriff, Scott Israel, when right after this horrendous event happened, he came out and said, with all the problems he had with leadership, he said, "I am absolutely the best leader ever." I mean, basically, I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he came out and said.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because in this article, they reference the facts that Israel was a Democrat and that he was a very dedicated Democratic Party. And in this article, they have a picture with Hillary Clinton.
Really?
This ought to tell you where all this was coming from and why this stuff was put in place. And what I'm saying to you and your listeners is that this was being done to make guns look bad so they can implement gun control.
Absolutely. We have a caller with a question for you, Dave. And caller, I'm going to ask you, please hold your question or comment to about 30 seconds. We're getting shy on time. Go ahead.
Well, Scott Israel, the sheriff is friends with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and there's no question about it. And he's extremely liberal. If you taint the facts and you get what you think you want, but then 17 families are suffering like I couldn't even imagine because of political correct BS. And the thing of it is when we reelect these people that are destroying our country, we have to say, well, when do we finally wise up? And I don't know. Because I'll tell you what, it's just across this nation, you will hope that there's somebody left that will know better. I'll hang up.
I appreciate your comment. Thank you, caller. Dave, respond, please.
Well, he has to understand that the Democratic Party uses the same tactics and agenda that the unions use and the SEIU used against me and my company. And they go out in these areas and they brainwash these people about, oh, we're doing all these good things for you. We're giving these things for you. You guys are getting entitlements and welfare. We're making life easier on you. We're doing things for your kids and your children and all that kind of stuff. And it's all hypocritical.
Yeah.
It's all do as I say, not as I do type of comments. And we have to wake up these people and get into these areas and talk to these people that the far left and the unions and that are doing these things to gain control in this country, and they could care less about these people.
Absolutely.
If they really cared about these people, they would realize, and this started back in the 60s with Johnson, that entitlement and welfare programs and leaning on the government all the time is not the way to succeed in life. You have to stand up and use the abilities God gave you and make something out of yourself.
Amen. I'm almost out of time, but I want you to respond to this next segment. And how far is Indianapolis from Chicago? I can't remember. I haven't been there for a long time, but it's not that far, is it?
No, it's about 160 miles.
That's what I was thinking. And that close, you are seeing and witnessing something that could really have devastating effects on all of big cities in America. Rahm Emanuel is coming out with a Chicago ID card, and he's giving them to illegal aliens in the city of Chicago. And last night I was just absolutely appalled when I heard that the illegal aliens, are going to try to implement and use at the polling places that ID card to vote in our elections. I got to have you comment on that.
Oh, it doesn't surprise me at all. This has happened in places around the country. You know, it happened out in Las Vegas, and that several years ago when they reelected Harry Reid, when he was behind 5 or 6 points, and but the SEIU got a bunch of illegals and put them on buses and brought them in and had them, you know, fake IDs and stuff like that, had them vote and got him back in. And we're going to see more and more of this, because you got to put the two groups together, the far left and the unions and the Democratic Party. The biggest percent of money for campaigns and their agenda for the Democratic Party comes from the unions. And so this whole thing with the downturn in the unions is affecting that party, and it's going to get ugly.
You know, just how bad is it back there in that area? I mean, 160, 150 miles away from Chicago, and the influence that big city has. How bad is this?
Well, it doesn't affect us because you get outside of Chicago and, you know, the suburbs out there. I mean, it affects some of that up in northwest Indiana, but Indiana is a conservative state, and it does the right things. And in fact, they're in the process of protecting gun laws and but improving the registration process, which I think could be done, because I do think it's kind of loose at times. And but you know, I think Trump is getting behind the Indiana law that we're looking at, because he sees it as making sure that people get guns are truly legal and registered correctly. But he believes that American people should have guns.
Dave, and I want to go back quickly. Just give me a short answer on this. You think the Supreme Court will make a ruling on this union case in June?
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
Okay. Listen, my friend, you did an outstanding job again. Did you get your gift?
Yeah, I've been wondering if you're going to say anything. I keep looking at this hat on the shelf across from the desk here that says, "To all liberals, Trump you."
That's it, David. Wear it proudly on the golf course. You'll probably get 10 more mulligans.
Pictures that showed it to people, and they got a kick out of it.
All right. Well, listen, my dear friend, God bless you and have a great day, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
All right. Dave Beagle, Indianapolis, Indiana, a very, very dear friend. Hey, don't forget, the Bennett Boys Auction Service going to have a ripping good sale this coming Saturday, March 3rd, 11 o'clock, Saturday morning. They're going to start over in Filer, Idaho at 1937 East, 4000 North. This is the Wade and Christine Miller sale. Whoo! They've got a lot of good stuff over there. Tractors and trailers. They got a John Deere 4450 diesel tractor. And they've got all kinds of farm equipment, beet planters, and everything else, along with irrigation items and supplies, shop equipment. Oh, this is going to be a good sale. Bennett Boys Auction Service, big sale over in Filer this coming Saturday at 11 a.m., and it's going to be at 1937 East, 4000 North. The Bennett Boys Auction Service. No sale too big, no sale too small. The Bennett Boys sell them all. Let's see, what else have I got cooking here? Oh, real quick, I want to talk about Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. You know, you've kind of been cooped up all winter long and looking at the same old four walls and the same carpeting and the same old recliner and that gringy old sofa. Well, brighten up! It's springtime at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More, 459 Overland and Burley. They've got all the furniture, all the tables, all the chairs, couches, everything. Great, great selections of flooring and carpet. What are you waiting for? Brighten up at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland and Burley. Jeff and the crew just waiting right now to serve you. Let me see else I have here. Oh, real quick, I've got to get this on. Let's ride. Let's ride. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. No more snow drifts. Let's ride. Let's ride over at 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World, open Monday through Friday 9 to 6, Saturdays 9 to 4. And now, right now, this minute, now is the time to get your four-wheelers over there to get them serviced and ready to ride. Absolutely. And if you don't have a four-wheeler, well, you can bet when you step your feet into the showroom floor, look to the left, look to the right, and you're going to find just what you're looking for, along with all the accessories, too, at Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World, where the fun is sold. Right now, we are going to go to the phone line. And I've been looking forward to having this gentleman on my program for about a week now. And he is a senior attorney at the Pacific Legal Foundation. His name is Mark Miller, and he's going to tell us, and I want everybody to take notes, he's going to tell us what we can and can't wear. Actually, we'd be better off going to the polling places nude. Mark, good morning.
Zeb, thank you for having me on.
What is going on that we have to now be cognizant and very aware and afraid of what we wear to go vote?
Right, so we, Pacific Legal Foundation has a case before the Supreme Court this morning. Actually, it was just argued between 10 and 11, and it's called Minnesota Voters Alliance versus Mansky. And in the case, our clients, who were members of the Tea Party, went to vote in 2010 wearing a Gadsden flag shirt that said, "Don't tread on me," and they also had a little logo of the local Tea Party. And Minnesota has a statute that said you can't wear anything political at all when you vote. So the volunteer voting officials at the polling place where our client went, Mr. Silek, they stopped him from voting. They said because of this Gadsden flag Tea Party shirt he was wearing, he would not be allowed to vote initially for 5 hours. They weren't allowing him to vote. Ultimately, they did allow him to vote. They relented, but he was staring at fines of up to $5,000 just for wearing a T-shirt. And so Pacific Legal Foundation took over his case. He sued and said that violates my First Amendment rights. I should be able to wear what I'd like to wear when I go to vote, and there's nobody being intimidated by me wearing a Tea Party shirt. I don't know if you've ever met any Tea Party members, Zeb, but I don't find them to be, having attended many of their meetings, I don't find them to be particularly intimidating.
No.
And he said, I can wear what I want when I go to vote, and Pacific Legal Foundation agrees with him. And in fact, in a case that makes for strange bedfellows, the ACLU agrees with him too, and so the ACLU is supporting us before the U.S. Supreme Court. And my colleague at Pacific Legal Foundation, David Bremer, just argued the case this morning.
So what you're saying, and the way I'm interpreting this, is that if I wear an NRA cap to the polls, and by the way, Wheels, I'm getting a little bit of feedback on the line there, if you would. If I wear an NRA cap to the polls or a T-shirt that says America's First, some little blue-haired 80-year-old poll worker lady is going to throw me out.
That's exactly right, and you're really getting at, one of the problems with the law. It's so overbroad because if you're wearing an NRA hat, you could be thrown out. In fact, we've had a couple of real-life examples that are just as ridiculous, if not more so. In 2008, someone was wearing a Alaska sweatshirt, a sweatshirt that mentioned Alaska, and so the polling place volunteer didn't think that was appropriate because it looked like you could read into it that it was an endorsement for McCain and Sarah Palin.
Oh,
Sarah was from Alaska. And then in 2012, to take the sublime to the ridiculous, 2012, someone went to vote wearing a Massachusetts Institute of Technology shirt, an MIT logoed shirt, and the polling place worker thought that looked to be an endorsement of MITT Romney for president, Mitt Romney. And so that voter was facing intimidation. If anything, it's the voters that are just trying to vote who are being intimidated, not other voters who see someone wearing an MIT shirt that are going to be intimidated. And that's part of the problem, is that these volunteers, who may mean well, they're all, like you said, the blue hairs, They mean well, but they don't really know what they're doing. They should not be the ones deciding what is political and what's not.
Let me ask you this, though, Mark. Is this a more predominant problem in blue states, blue regions, and not so much in the red states, red regions?
Well, Zeb, I just happen to have a list of the states that have an ordinance, or a statute similar to Minnesota's statute. And I can't say that. I can say you're safe up there in Idaho. We don't have the law. And here in Florida, where I am as the managing attorney for Pacific Legal, we don't have the law. But it looks to me like some blue, some red. You're looking at 9 states. Minnesota, I think, blue. Delaware, blue. Kansas, I think that's the state that's sort of purple.
Yeah.
Montana, I'd say red. New Jersey, blue. New York, blue. South Carolina, red. Tennessee, red. Texas, red. Vermont, if I recall correctly, was blue, but that's pretty much a purple state, too. So I can't say it is a liberal or conservative problem, and in fact, I think that's interesting that that question brings that out, that some of the blue states have the law, some of the red states, because here, like I said, the left and the right agree. Pacific Legal Foundation typically considered more conservative, ACLU more liberal, but we all agree on free speech, that when the government thinks it can start telling us what we're allowed to say, that's when I get a little bit afraid of my government.
Yeah.
In a way that goes beyond what Pacific Legal Foundation often does, which is, property rights. And I don't want the government treading on my property rights, I assure you, or my clients. But when the government starts telling us what we're allowed to say and what we're not allowed to say, it becomes Orwellian. And so I'm glad to see in this case that everyone seems to agree that this law goes way too far in chilling speech.
You know what I'm going to do just to test this, because that's the nature of my personality. I am going to go and have a T-shirt printed up that says in big, bold, black letters, "I'm going to sue if you don't let me vote."
Well, and in fact here, Mr. Silek, one of our plaintiffs, one of our petitioners, he was wearing I think a button that said, "Please ID me." And so he was there getting at the idea that, what's so hard, what's so difficult about providing a simple driver's license identification or just any sort of ID when you go to vote. And I've also had other people mention the idea that there are some Tea parties. I had a friend of PLF up in Connecticut who said they created a shirt that said, "I'm a member of the Tea Party." It's a big, and this is a reference to Joe Biden when he said the Affordable Care Act was a big, deal, a big deal, with an adjective in the middle there that my Irish relatives like to use. And so he created a T-shirt that said, "I'm a member of the Tea Party. It's a big, deal." And he said, "Well, do you think I'd be allowed to vote with that shirt on?" And I said, "Well, I don't know that I would want to try it."
Let me ask you something, Mark, and I'm going to show some naivete here. I'm not sure about what I'm going to phrase, but is it, according to what I've heard, that if you are arrested and or asked to leave a polling place, that could be a felony against your record?
You could. In this case, yes, you're looking at up to $5,000 in fines if you were to be arrested for this, and that was what our client in the case was looking at. If they had decided to charge him, the police ended up not charging him. Whether, I can't off the top of my head recall whether it's a felony. The problem that these states have is that they're trying to follow an old Supreme Court decision from about 25 years or so ago that said you can't politic. You can't actually go in and campaign in the ballot office, in the voting office. And that is understandable, even though that was a controversial decision in its day. And I think that case may be discussed at length in the opinions that arise from this case. But this is quite different. This is not somebody going in and saying, "I'm for Trump," and I'm going to actually hold a sign up, "I'm for Trump," right outside the ballot box as you step in. No. That law stands 100 feet. There's a safe zone, whether we call that a non-public free speech zone, or whatever we want to call it. That you can't do that. You can't campaign in the voting booth. But that's not what's going on here. Here you're giving too much discretion because, like you said, what if that voting official, the blue hair, thinks that an NRA member shouldn't be allowed to vote, and so then they rely on this law and say, you know what, I'm not going to allow this NRA voter in, and maybe it will help the candidate I want. And I'm doing it, in theory, under color of law, so no one can accuse me of being biased. But in fact, that's what the law invites. And again, the same way that voting volunteer official the ballot official could not like somebody who has a Hillary Clinton shirt, or Elizabeth Warren if it's 2020. And, so they can say, no, I don't want you in here. And it doesn't have to be Elizabeth Warren. Maybe it's a Harvard shirt, since she's a teacher at Harvard, if she ends up running for president and getting the nomination for the Democrats. And so we don't want volunteers, officials who really are just there to sort of help us through the process, to be making these sort of significant decisions that could affect the results, and deciding what's reasonable speech and what's unreasonable speech, because that's just not what our founding fathers thought. They did not approve a system of reasonable and unreasonable speech. They approved a system of free speech.
Let me just say this, and please, if you don't agree, chew back at me on this, but the way I listen to this, the vagaries of this action are so discriminatory that there will be just countless lawsuits, and I look at this as a situation with these vagaries that would more or less hurt more people that are conservative than it would those that are kind of liberal and anything goes. Am I wrong?
I can't say that you're wrong. I think that one of the reasons our clients in this case took this case on is for that very concern. They're in Minnesota, so we're talking about a blue state, and they think that their voting rights are being interfered with, and they think so justifiably, because this man, Mr. Andy Heiliger, he was held for 5 hours just because he wanted to vote. It really is, patently outrageous in the United States. When we picture the Iraqis who were holding up the blue fingers after they voted when they got inked, and how important free voting systems are to our republic here in the United States and to the rest of the world, the idea that government officials could think, even if they're volunteers, they're acting on behalf of the government, they think they could stop conservatives in this case from voting just because they were wearing, in this case, don't tread on me, that they clearly were conservative. And even though the law cuts both ways, it could hurt liberals, it could hurt conservatives, I think it is a reasonable concern, because this case demonstrates that, in fact, it was conservatives who found their voting rights being affected.
Mark, would you excuse me if I kind of meander off the railroad track here for a moment? You are very well versed in what's going on around the country, but what are your thoughts? And I'm scared of this, I'll tell you right up front. What are your thoughts about what Rahm Emanuel is trying to implode into Chicago with a new ID card, a Chicago key card that would be given to illegal aliens, and some have come out and said, hey, this is just another door opener to get the illegals to go vote. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that the immigration issue, it's a frustrating issue, because I feel our president, in good faith, has tried to solve an intractable problem that President Obama could not solve, and that President George W. Bush could not solve. And it really, we could say Reagan addressed immigration in the 80s. And so in the 90s, I would say you can't really fault the first President Bush or President Clinton too much for not addressing the issue, because Reagan had just addressed it, if I recall correctly, in 86. But once the problem has festered of illegal immigration in our country to where we got to the 2000s, and George W. Bush sends, puts out a hand to the Democrats to say, let's solve this. Democrats say no. So he's trying to be reasonable. They say no. Then we have President Obama, who knew knowingly, I'm not saying anything he doesn't agree with, he knew when he passed DACA that he did not have the powers to do it. But he didn't pass it, I should say. When he signed an executive order that created this deferred action on the children immigration order, he knew he didn't have that power, but he did it anyway. And so now here we have President Trump, who campaigned on immigration and took a fairly hard line. But now that he's in office, he has offered the Democrats more, I would posit, than President Obama was offering them in offering Republicans in terms of trying to get a law passed, so that, because we are a nation of laws, executive orders may be lawful, but sometimes the executive tries to take more power than they have. It's Congress that should be writing the laws. And here, Trump is trying to work with Congress, Democrats and Republicans, to solve the issue. Democrats are not, and so they're not working with him, even though he's making a reasonable offer, I would propose. And instead, you have local officials like Rahm Emanuel, who are trying to take what should be a nationally resolved issue. The Constitution makes this an issue that should be resolved at the national level, and he tries to turn it into a local issue, a local resolved issue. And you really can't resolve immigration when you're in Chicago. How can you be making decisions in Chicago when it's really Texas and the other border states that are dealing with immigration firsthand?
You know what I'm so afraid of? I'm an old man, Mark, but I will come out and say this, that the vote, the right to vote, America's rights, our Constitution, everything is at huge risk right now, more so than ever before, because of this acceptance by the Democrats. I'm not going to pull any punches to try to buy votes from the illegal aliens, and I'm very concerned about America's future.
Well, at Pacific Legal Foundation, we agree with you that we are concerned about America's future. That's why it's a nonprofit, and our donors donate to us specifically to push back against either political party, frankly, that tries to take advantage of, let's say, for example, illegal voting. And I don't know that you can say that it's just a Democrat issue, because certainly the Republicans have been wishy-washy on immigration as well. And that's where, again, I don't understand, not taking sides in terms of President Trump and the Democrats and Republicans, but President Trump, in good faith, is trying to solve a difficult problem for the country. And wouldn't it be better for all Americans to come together and get behind a program that Trump pushes and that the Republicans and Democrats can support? And instead, he gets static from his own party, he gets static from the Democrats, and to give people a path to citizenship so that they can vote legally would be much better than, as you're pointing out, a system where Rahm Emanuel is going off and opening the door, potentially, to illegal voting.
Absolutely. Mark, I thank you for letting me kind of get off the rails there for a little bit, and I appreciate that. Senior attorney with the Pacific Legal Foundation. Now, tell all my listeners how they can follow these various court cases.
Yeah, Pacific Legal Foundation is on the web. So we're Pacific Legal, so Pacific like Pacific Ocean, and then legal, and then .org. And what we are is a nonprofit law foundation. We were founded 45 years ago. Then Governor Reagan said to Ed Meese, why are there no organizations like the ACLU, but perhaps a little more conservative? And from that idea was born Pacific Legal Foundation. We're celebrating our 45th anniversary this weekend, in fact, at the Ronald Reagan Library in Santa Monica. And if you go to our website, you'll see how you can donate to Pacific Legal so that we can defend, as in this case, Tea Partiers, who have taken their case all the way to the Supreme Court, and we argued it this morning, or property rights. I have a case set for argument this fall at the U.S. Supreme Court involving property rights of my client who lives in Louisiana, who the federal government is declaring his property critical habitat and saying he won't be able to use his property in the future because there's a frog that maybe thinks that property should be for the frog rather than my client who owns it. And so if you like the idea of fighting for property rights, fighting for conservative free speech, I would encourage you to check out our website, look at our cases, and even consider making a donation.
Absolutely. I've had that story just last week about the frog, and you talk about something that made me really scratch my head in bewilderment. That was it. Thank you so much. Mark, we appreciate you.
We'll more about it, Zeb, when we get to the fall, and then we get to argue at the Supreme Court.
I'll look forward to it. Mark Miller with the Pacific Legal Foundation. God bless, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zeb. You too.
Thank you. Wow, a lot of things going on around the world, and we try to keep them right there for you to understand some of the mess that's going on in politics and other stupid world events. There you go. Let's get a weather forecast on here. Holy buckets, I'm late. And the weather forecast this hour is brought to you by Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. I know these people are the best. We go there, they help us, they'll help you. That's it. Plain and simple. They've been providing accounting services to the Mini-Cash area for well over 50 years. The best of tax return preparation, tax planning, payroll services, retirement planning, business consulting. The list goes on. And so do the answers from them. Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company, with offices in Burley and Rupert. Right now, here's the weather.
Okay, we're looking at partly cloudy skies for today, a little on the breezy side. Expect a high of 33 tonight. Clouds are going to roll in, bringing along with it about a 30% chance of snow showers. Low of 23 tomorrow, 50% chance of rain or snow. Going to have the rain showers in the lower elevations, snow showers in the higher elevations, high of 40, and that is going to continue for tomorrow night, looking at a low of 33. Right now we're sitting at 12.
Are you live or is it Memorex?
Live, baby.
Oh, I thought you were gone. Hey, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Oh, okay. Stay with me a minute. I want to talk to you in a second. Hey, okay. Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company bringing you the weather on Zebeth Ranch for hour number 2 with offices in Burley and Rupert. It's tax time. Get ready. Get with the best. Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. What did you think, if you were running the board? I thought you were gone. I apologize.
No, that's okay.
But what did you think of that story about you now have to be aware that you might get thrown out of a polling place if you wear a U.S. flag T-shirt, or if you have on an NRA cap, or if you have something on that says Make America Great Again? You might be thrown out and told you can't come back unless you change clothes. I find this absolutely not American.
No, it's not American, especially if we are inundated, and I'm going to say this, if I have to watch people, mostly men, wear their breeches or their pants down to where you can, see their boxer shorts, then I should be able to go in to the polling place, and because I'm not there spewing my political opinions verbally, I'm just walking in to make my vote. I should be able to wear what I want.
Well, the thing is, how many people after work, and I agree with you, the plumber's butt has got to stop. That is anti-American. But how many people after work, and I'll bet you out of every 20 people, I'll say this and I'll stand behind this, out of every 20 people that go to a polling place, I'll bet you under these new rules and auspices, you'll find somebody that they'd say has to go home.
I would not be surprised. And if you take into consideration, a lot of these people are coming off of work. They might be construction workers wherever. And there really is no, quote-unquote, attire requirements. So they might be wearing, say, maybe a Make America Great Again T-shirt, and they walk in there. Well, they just got off work. You want them to go home and say it's like 7:30 at night, the polling place closes at 8. You're going to deny them that right to vote? Well, then what do you want us to do, absentee ballot?
Okay, let me give you a T-shirt example of one that I know of from talking to Mark before we went on the program today. Simple phrase, and I've got one. I don't know if you have one or not, but God Bless America T-shirt.
We should be able to wear that.
No, because, see, he was telling me there's a lot of big deals now where they don't want any religious references at the polls.
What?
Yeah. Okay, the word God.
This has gone too far.
It's crazy. And when we have, and I don't mean to denigrate anybody, but basically your poll workers a lot of times are your elderly seniors that have given up their time to go and help the polling places. Yes. Are they going to be the judge, jury, and executioner as to who gets in and an American freedom and an American treasured vote and tell those people to go home?
Isn't there somebody that we could talk to about this?
Well, that's why the Pacific Legal Foundation filed suit on this case, because I don't think, you might feel one way about a topic or a phrase, I might feel the other. But why should you personally have the right to tell me, oh, no, I don't like that on your T-shirt, you go home, you can't vote?
See, you know what, and that is protected by our right to free speech.
Bingo.
You've got a phone call.
All right, quickly. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Zeb. I've got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to know what kind of powers and how much power President Trump has to stop a lot of this garbage that's going on.
Well, you know, there's a lot of the
using it.
There's a lot of the executive powers, the power of the pen, and a lot of which we saw with Obama that we didn't care for. But on the other hand, there's a lot of this so-called garbage going on now with the wearing certain clothing to the polling places. A lot of this is just a frivolous waste of time, and to me, it's nothing more than a power source of the left trying to have control over the population. I don't like it.
Well, next time I go down to a poll, I'll be wearing my NRA hat. I'll be wearing my T-shirt, my NRA T-shirt with a big flag on it.
Absolutely.
And if I'm told I can't vote, I'm going to stop that voting place.
Well, and we all need
to do that.
I agree with you, and that's why I said earlier with Mark on the air, I'm thinking about getting a T-shirt made up that says, I'm going to sue if I am not allowed to vote. And that simple phrase, nothing else. And the way this thing is with Mr. Silik, is the person that filed that lawsuit with the Pacific Legal Foundation, you know, the far reaches of somebody having the judge, jury, and executioner attitude of one person working at a polling place can tell you, Tony, or me, Zeb, or Gina, no, you're not going to come in and vote. I don't like that. Go home and change your clothes. That is absolutely nothing more than Gestapo tactics.
Well, if somebody can't speak English and they're in there, they're not a citizen, and they go to vote, and me, I've got over 10 years military service. Would I have the right to shut this polling place down?
I'm not going to get into the legalities and everything. That's where you really need to get a qualified attorney like Mark Miller. But, Tony, I tell you what, I don't like people telling me I can't vote because a T-shirt I might have on or a cap or whatever might offend them personally. I don't like that. I got to run, Tony. Thank you so much.
Okay. Buddy.
All right, buddy.
Bye.
Hey, don't forget Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. The best of life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits. They care. They care about you, your family, and your business. They're very dedicated and accessible. Please call them for an appointment today, 436-4424. That number again, 436-4424, Cameron and Siemens Insurance. Well, I guess what it all boils down to, I'm going to wear what I want to wear, and we're going to see what happens and where the chips will fall. Hey, we're going to take a little break, and coming up next hour, we have a really interesting guest. I've never had this gentleman on the program before. His name is Stephen Super, and he has a book called Never Lose Sight. Very interesting man. We'll have him at 10:06. Right now, we're going to turn it back over to our main studios. We'll be back in just about 7 minutes. Oh, and a good morning to all of you. Hope your day is going well. This last day of February. And then tomorrow, March is in. Well, okay, good morning. Anyhow, Zeb at the Ranch, I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you and taking care of you. And don't forget, too, some of our great advertisers like Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation with Nick Greenwell and his great team of physical therapists at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. I'm not going to waste any time. Oh, I got a birthday I've got to take care of real quick. This is a very important birthday, and it's a reminder to Doug Martin, go spend some of that money that's just molding away in your billfold on your lovely wife, Crystal. She's having a birthday today. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday. There you go. We're going to go right to the phone line, and we have a gentleman on the program this morning that is the author of a new book called Never Lose Sight. Good morning to Stephen Super. How are you, sir?
Good, sir. Good morning to you guys.
It's a pleasure to have you on. And with the little information sheet that I have on you, Stephen, I could not believe how your life and mine are really intertwined on a bunch of various ways that we'll talk about a little bit later. But tell us a little bit, give us a thumbnail sketch of this book called Never Lose Sight.
Sure, I'd love to. Actually, Never Lose Sight is my autobiography, the story of my life, and basically it has dual meanings. Never Lose Sight actually is more personal to me because at the age of 26, my vision was destroyed in the 6 short weeks. I had lost my job, I lost my career, lost my fiance, and worst of all, I lost my independence. You can basically say my life at that age of 26 was completely destroyed due to a sudden and very devastating disease called Leber's optic neuropathy, whereby it destroys your optic nerve in both eyes, leaving you with blindness in both eyes where you can't see anything. It's basically a big blur. But the book Never Lose Sight has also other meanings. It's meanings to other individuals who are going through difficult times, difficult setbacks in their life. For them, also never to lose sight, and to just understand, just because some setbacks may seem catastrophic to them, it may seem that you cannot overcome that big deficit that you might think you're in, that you are certainly capable of doing some quite amazing things, and God is quite capable of doing some miraculous things in your life as He did through mine.
You know, Stephen, I'm just taken aback. There's so much correlation between our two lives. How are you doing now? Give us kind of a status update as to what you are doing, what your health is like, etc.
Absolutely. Let me take it back really quickly. At age 26, my eyesight was destroyed. My eyesight at that time was 20/800 in both eyes, and the specialist, the neurosurgeon, said that my vision would not come back. My optic nerve at that time was over 90% destroyed in both eyes. Permanent destruction, no hope whatsoever. And at that time, I was an accountant, so that type of career was completely destroyed. So after much soul searching, I realized that God has a different plan for me, not to go that way in life, to help people. So I embarked on a long career of self-rehabilitation and kind of doing life all over again, if you would, going back to school for the second time, starting a career for the second time. And miraculously enough, 8 years after I lost my vision, at the age of 34, I had the sudden and miraculous recovery of my vision.
Oh, my.
Now, when I went back to the same doctor who originally diagnosed me at age 26 and said, "Doc, I got my sight back. You said this was permanent." And he said, "Well, let's have a look." He looked into my eyes, and he said, "I don't understand this." He said, "I saw a look in your eyes, and your optic nerves in both of your eyes is still 90% dead. You should not be seeing out of your eyes. You should not be seeing at all with this kind of destruction." So, miraculously enough, I truly believe that God gave me a miracle, and I'm embarking on a career that I've been on now for the last 22 years, physical therapy. I'm helping people. I'm doing motivational speaking, helping people in other arenas, and just giving people hope that just because you have setbacks and difficulties in your life is not over. It's only a setback. It's for a much better comeback coming in the future.
You know, Stephen, you mentioned one name, one being, and I want you to elaborate on it a little bit because it plays, and he has played, a major part of my life and continues to do so. I don't think you're ashamed that you're a faithful man of God, correct?
No, sir, not at all. Not what he did for me. In the book Never Lose Sight, I was completely devastated. I was at the bottom of the barrel, as you would say, and just by going forward a little bit, doing a little, and put my faith in God, and realizing that my life really, I have no really true control over my life. God has control of your life, and God has certain wonderful, amazing plans for each and every one of your listeners and each and every one of us, way beyond our imagination. So if you put our faith in Him and let Him take over, do the right thing, help people, be a good person, pray, God will definitely lead you through some incredible over some incredible mountains and some obstacles that are certainly humanly impossible, like you did for me, and hopefully I can do for others as well.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that I'm hearing in your voice is one of optimism, one of faith, one of there is no obstacle that you can't climb over. And I'm assuming, without having read the book, Never Lose Sight, I'm assuming that's a major part of your book is to tell people stop feeling sorry for yourself and go out and do something.
You know what, absolutely. And it's no fault of individuals sometimes because society kind of gives you that illusion that, you can't do anything without somebody else, you're helpless. And they really don't emphasize the importance of God and what God can do for each one of us. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it is nowadays. And that's why I wrote the book, Never Lose Sight, to tell people is God is out there willing to help each and every one of us. He's not too busy. He's not off doing something else. He is here to help you overcome your certain situation. Yes, you're going to feel down, but it's only a minor setback. Just pick yourself up, try to do a little bit more each day, stay close to God as much as you can, and believe me, it's going to start steamrolling, and God's going to open some doors like He did in my life. It's chronicled all throughout the book, Never Lose Sight, how many times I completely failed, and God basically had to send an angel multiple times and just kind of move those stones and roadblocks away so I can ultimately achieve my goal.
You know, Stephen, I don't like to talk about myself on these programs because it's about you, the guest. But what I said was so closely intertwined. I had polio. I was in a plane crash. I've had numerous accidents and 17 surgeries, heart attack, stroke, everything else. And the only thing that really keeps me going, and they're twofold. Number one, my faith, and number two, my wife. How does family play a part in your daily routine?
Well, obviously, faith is incredibly huge in my life because God gave me a miracle. I mean, He gave my sight back when it's not supposed to happen. And the book really has three main themes. One is hope, one is, of course, faith, and the other one is love. My wife actually met me when I was still legally blind, and she accepted me for who I was, when many other people would not do so. Many people did not want any parts of me. They didn't want to. I couldn't drive. I couldn't read a newspaper. I couldn't walk outside. So my wife accepted me who I was, and as God would reward us for putting His trust in Him, and not only did I meet the most beautiful and incredible woman, but I ended up marrying her, having kids, and then getting my sight back on top of it. So,
wow.
Earlier she would take care of me when I was legally blind, doing all the driving and so forth. Now I'm doing it all. So it's funny how God works. If you put your faith in Him, God sends incredible people, my wife, friends, family members, that really help you over certain obstacles that you think are seemingly impossible. That's why you can't put your vision on yourself. You have to look to a higher power.
Let me ask you this, Stephen, and if I'm encroaching on an area you don't want to talk about, just let me know. But what was it like? I mean, give us an instance as to what it was like when you saw your wife for the first time.
You know what? It's funny you say that. I get many questions about that. My vision was so bad that I couldn't see about 2 feet beyond my nose. So when I first met my wife, obviously we were actually on a dance floor, so I kind of an idea what she looked like, but I could not see from a distance. So if I wasn't right on top of her, nose to nose, or a few feet away, I lost her face. But when I got my sight back, I mean, it was incredibly. It was like having your child born again, and watching your kids go through, birth and growing up. So it was an incredible euphoric feeling. You can see her all day, but to be quite honest with you, it wasn't the physical appearance that attracted us together. It was something deeper than that. But it's certainly seeing her every day when I couldn't see her was certainly a wonderful feeling. But she was, I would just say, my soulmate. I mean, she helps me a great deal, and I'd like to say I help her as well. But it was quite a revelation, and especially now that I have glasses, I can see it from a distance. So it's a wonderful experience.
Now, you mentioned you have children. How old are they, Stephen?
Sure. I have an older son, Alexander. He is 19, and Stephen, he is 16.
Okay, now, upon asking that question about their ages, and I'm going to try to inject a little bit of levity here, but I would imagine that once you got your sight back, maybe the kids said, uh-oh, Dad can see, we got to knock this stuff off.
Yeah, well, let me tell you something. I got my sight back before my first son was born. So, but it didn't come back 100%. So it's a long story, and that part's in the book, Never Lose Sight. But they certainly got tired very quickly when they're younger. When I would say to them, throw the ball up in the air so I can see it. So I kind of lost that ability for father and son catching after the age of like 7 or 8. But they understand my limitations, before and after. So they're great kids.
Let me ask you this, and it's about society today, Stephen. Would you say, and I personally think that we're at that level, would you say that today it's too easy for people to quit in adverse situations?
Well, absolutely. I mean, look at society. You watch you listen to movies, watch TV movies or Hollywood movies. Everything is about anti-God. It's about anti-God. Put your trust in them. Put your faith in them. You should look this way, act this way, go on this kind of diet fad, have this kind of physique. And that blurs the lines of reality. It blurs the lines of what God thinks is important or is important in your life. So you have to step away from that artificial way of looking at things. You have to realize that God made each and every one of us to be very special, unique, individual, amazing people who can achieve some incredible things like I have done, or God has done for me in the book Never Lose Sight. So each one of your listeners, I don't care what background you are in, God is want to do some amazing things. He wants you to be fantastic. He wants you to be great. He's got a perfect spouse for you set up. He's got the perfect job plan for you. You have to put your faith in him, and then when he gives you all these things, he's going to expect you just to acknowledge them.
You know, everything you're saying I can relate to, and I bet you that I would say this next item, and you're also going to agree with me, that even though you have a great faith, and I consider myself to be a man of faith, that there were the days, there were the times where you wanted to take your fist and run it right through a wall because you were discouraged and even mad, correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, you go from having everything in the palm of your hand, a bright future, a great career. You know, I was about to get engaged at that time. Everything was fantastic, and a new sports car, and everything was taken away in 6 weeks. You know, I say in the book that Never Lose Sight how I never lost an individual, a family member, a friend, but the feeling of losing your vision and lose your independence, it hurts beyond the depths of your heart. And you get mad, but you really can't punch anything. You really, it's anger that's not well placed. So then you realize, listen, there has to be a purpose. There has to be a reason for this. And then I thought back, listen, the only person who could take away your sight is God. So if it took away my sight, it had to be for a purpose. So let's find out what this purpose is and let's get on, because sitting in my parents' basement for weeks after week was getting quite sad and depressing. And my life was going on outside, but I was staying inside doing nothing. So I decided I'm going to turn around and rechannel that energy.
Okay. Now, tell us a little bit about the book itself, as far as where can people obtain it, what locations can they contact? Give us that information.
Oh, thank you so much. Of course. Never Lose Sight can be purchased on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. And I'm getting wonderful feedback from the book, and people said it's a wonderful, motivational, inspirational book. It's written a number of different ways to help people, help adolescents go through the self-worth issues, and hopefully they can consider not ending their life, and help individuals who have been disabled or recently disabled who don't think they're productive members of society, and lastly, help individuals who lost their job and they don't think they can go on anymore. I know because I've been through all three of those.
Absolutely.
They can be purchased online.
Let me ask you these questions. You know, I too am writing a book right now, my first book, and I am not done with it. I was supposed to be done with it last fall, as a matter of fact. Let me ask you, is this a first-time venture for you to write a book?
It is, absolutely, and raising a family and writing a book was quite challenging. Absolutely it was, but I feel like I had a calling to it, as you will do as well. You feel like certain moments that you set aside to write the book, you write about 5 pages, and certain moments you write 3 lines. So it just you have to put your passion into it when you feel it's necessary at that moment, and you'll believe me, you'll get it done, and then you'll be amazed at the results.
You know, what you said was you might only write 3 lines, and sometimes I will sit there with that legal pad, and I'll get so frustrated and literally mad, I still can't find some of the pens that I've arced across the living room.
I can imagine.
Let me ask you, when people buy the book, and they read the book, and they close the cover after the last page, what do you want them to take away from that book?
Absolutely. Great question. I want people to take away that God is alive. God is working in your life. He's working behind the scenes when you're in difficult situations. He's setting up the perfect positions, perfect people, the perfect events in your life to give you happiness. Hang in there in those difficult situations. Stay close to him. And just like it happened in my life multiple times through Never Lose Sight, a miracle's going to happen in your life, and it's going to blow your mind away and realize, boy, God is so good, and God is active in each and every one of our lives.
Stephen Super, the author of Never Lose Sight. And, Stephen, I wish you great success on this book, and I'll look forward to getting a hold of you. I'm going to try to get a copy myself. And thank you for sharing with us on the program this morning.
Great talking to you. Glad to be with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Great individual, Stephen Super, and the author of a new book called Never Lose Sight, available on Amazon and other sources. Oh, boy, let's see. I've got time for a couple of phone calls. Give me a jingle on the landline, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. How many of you great folks in the audience are big fans of Barbra Streisand? I don't see any hands. I don't hear anybody. Remember, she used to be, what was that movie years ago that made her so famous? Funny Girl. Funny Girl, that was it. Barbra Streisand. She came out over the last couple of days in her fame and liberalness, and she blamed President Trump for the Florida shootings. And she came out then and said she also blamed him for the rigged voting machines which handed him the election. That's Barbra Streisand. Old snorkel face. One of the meanest, most vile women in liberalism today, along with Joy Behar. Now, by the way, talking about Joy Behar, she just doesn't know when to shut up. You talk about a troubled, sick, perverted liberal woman, that's Joy Behar. Now she is starting to compare the GOP, the Trump administration, and any of the voters that voted for Donald Trump, that now we are Nazi lovers. Yeah, she said the Republican Party is kind of like the Nazis in World War II. When is this woman ever going to shut up? And when are we, the people, going to band together and demand of the networks that she never is on TV again? Get rid of her. Fire her. And she is absolutely necessary of that firing. Give me a call. I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes. I've got a couple of minutes extra here this morning. I didn't anticipate, but please give me a call. And we'd love to visit with you at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Marion Wickham. She has sent me a notice that the Rupert United Methodist Church will be presenting a talent show on Saturday, March 3rd. That's coming up this weekend. And this is going to be at the church at 605 H Street in Rupert at 7 o'clock. And it's going to be under the direction of Cliff Heeb. So don't miss that. Caller, good morning. How are you?
Well, good morning, Zeb. I'm great. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm peachy. What can I do for you?
Oh, I was just reading an article in The Voice that just came to us a few minutes ago. It says a one-man shop that gives back. And it's a story about your co-host, about Doug Martin. And quite a nice little story. Thought I might let the folks know about that.
Well, as a matter of fact, the Times News, to their credit, they had that story in about a week ago about Doug Martin, and Doug, of course, is one of our avid listeners and always calling in and helping supply a lot of information about senior centers, etc., and he's just an all-around good guy. He's a good contributor to our lunch bunch with prizes, etc., so I'm pretty proud to know him. Doug Martin at Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair.
Well, I am too. I've known Doug for many years. Know his folks, his brothers, his sister, really, really good man there. Another thing, going back to a few minutes ago when you were talking about the flannel cotton shirts, I like wearing those, but I've got a problem with that. I've got a closet that my shirts automatically shrink in that closet. And I have researched this, and I know what the problem is. It's Trump. He is causing my shirts to shrink in the closet.
Well, for heaven's sakes, I felt the same way about my Wrangler jeans. They were shrinking, just hanging on the hanger, and I didn't know who to blame. And now, because of your call, I can redirect my anger at the Trump administration.
There you go. Now we know. So we've got to impeach him and get him out of there so we can once again wear those clothes.
And it has nothing to do with overeating or anything else. It's a ploy from the Republican Party and Donald Trump in particular to make our clothes stop fitting. Thank you so much for that this morning.
Okay. Thank you, Zeb. Keep up the good work.
Okay, God bless you, man. Thanks. I never thought about it that way. I do know that I bought Wranglers. I used to wear a 34 waist, 36 length, and it was amazing over the last year's winter holidays how those Wranglers just sitting in the closet, they shrunk, and I had to start buying a 36. And now, with my dedicated diet, and I am dedicated, Deanne's sitting right here in the office, she can tell you, my days of enjoying food are over. And you got to admit, Deanne, that salad and the spinach and the yogurt and the granola and the radishes and the cucumbers, they're getting a little old. We're going to get ready to take a break right now and send it back over to our main studios. And Wheels, you're back. How's everything going, buddy?
Well, to be honest, I know I sent you a text, but everything went great. I'm going to be watching over my finger for the next week just to make sure that everything goes, smooth. But other than that, it couldn't have gotten better than I expected.
All right.
Trust me, I went in there shaking my tail off.
Well, that's all right. I'm glad you're back there, and thanks to Gina for filling in for you, too.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't do anything without her, and
okay.
I really appreciate that.
All right. Hey, we're going to turn it back over to you for about 3 minutes. We'll be right back. Thank you.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
And thank you very much. Welcome back into our last half hour for this last day of February. And we have with us a gentleman that represents the Gun Owners of America. Legislative Counsel Michael Hammond. Michael, good morning, sir. How are you? Is he there, Wheels?
Yes, sir, he is.
I am not hearing him. Good morning, Michael Hammond. How are you?
How are you, Zeb? Thank you for having me, and hello, Rupert, Idaho.
Well, thank you. I do it from my ranch at Murtaugh, but we're only about 35 miles apart. But it's good to have you on the program. What is it?
Well, I worked for Senator James McClure and Senator Steve Sims. Handled the McClure-Vogtmer Firearms Owners Protection Act, so I've traveled quite a lot in Idaho.
Well, then maybe you've done down Old Highway 30, and you might have went right by my place and didn't stop in and get a cup of coffee. Shame on you.
Well, I wish I had known that the coffee was available. I definitely would have traveled right down Highway 30 to your house.
Michael, let me ask you, on behalf of the title that you represent as Legislative Counsel for the Gun Owners of America, what does that mean? Explain that to me.
Well, Gun Owners of America is a no-compromise Second Amendment group. We represent the Second Amendment. We represent gun owners, self-reliant gun owners like the type that you have in very large numbers in Idaho. And we don't compromise just because every cable news media outlet in Washington is demanding that we sell out our principles.
You know, I will tell you this right up front, and I think we can have a really good discussion about this. I am more concerned than ever, and I'm an old man, that the Second Amendment and our freedoms are hanging on the end of a tree branch right now. Are you in agreement with me or not?
No, I absolutely agree with that. I'm a very old man, too, although I hesitate to say it, but I was around in 1964 in the ROTC when, as a 14-year-old kid, I marched back and forth across our urban high school campus with my semi-automatic M1 rifle, and no one thought anything of it. Since probably in my 43-year legislative career, there have been at least a dozen times in which certain gun groups, not us, have compromised as a result of pressure concerning the Second Amendment. It's never helped things. And what it's always done is energized the people who want to do away with the Second Amendment and give us New York's laws, and it's basically provided them with a stair-step from which they can make their next set of demands. And right now, we're in real danger because some of the squishy Republicans are saying, well, no, we have to give them some gun control so that we can stop all this media pressure. Guess what? CNN isn't going to back off one whit because liberal Republicans sell out. To the contrary, CNN is going to be energized in its efforts to attack them.
You know, looking ahead, and this is all just kind of a speculation question, but Michael, what are your fears? You're closer to this situation more than anybody on a 24/7, 365 basis working with the gun owners of America. What are your fears right now? What do you know or are afraid of more so than anything else as we speak on this radio program?
Well, some of the squishy Republicans are pushing a bill called Fix Nix. And what it would do is it would create a $625 million bribe pot to bribe states to send in every conceivable name that they can think of a person who should be subject to a gun ban. Now, why is this bad? Answer is because anywhere from 300,000 to as many as 4 million law-abiding veterans have lost their gun rights simply because they asked for help from the VA. The VA gave them a psychiatrist who sent their name off to NICS as a result of the gun ban, the national gun ban list, as a result of a diagnosis. So that's 4 million people who have lost their gun rights without any due process whatsoever. In states like Massachusetts and Ohio, if you don't pay your traffic tickets, then they'll send your name to NICS and take away your gun rights, probably without even notifying you. In 39 or 29 states, they are being now pressed to send everyone on their medical marijuana list to NICS without any due process whatsoever. And so there's potential of millions or perhaps tens of millions of additional Americans being subject to a gun ban, even though they're relatively innocent, relatively law-abiding people. And that whole idea is being embraced by some squishy Republicans right now. So I think that's the biggest danger to us.
You know, Michael, let me ask you this. You didn't mention one category, and I and you are both in that category, and that is the gray-haired and long-in-the-tooth type generation, those of us that are getting a little older. My biggest concern is that because those of us that draw a Social Security check, the government may say, oh, well, you've got a gun and you're over a certain age and maybe your mental capabilities aren't as strong, so we're going to withhold your Social Security check until you give up your gun for security. Could this happen?
Yeah, it would be worse than that, actually. And yes, thank you for raising that. That is a very real concern. Barack Obama tried to basically troll the roles of Social Security disability. That's not Social Security old age, but there's no distinction between the two. And tried to find people who are receiving federal benefits, such as Social Security, who have Alzheimer's. And my mother died of Alzheimer's at 89, or died of complications therefrom. People have PTSD, people who have ADHD, people who have obsessive-compulsive disorder, postpartum depression, any of 50 different things. There is a danger that the next time we have a Barack Obama-type administration, they are going to troll those roles, see who has those maladies, and automatically, without going to any court whatsoever, send your name to NICS. So, yeah, and incidentally, the thing I disagree with you on is they wouldn't withhold your Social Security check. The SWAT team would knock on your door ready to ransack your house, and guess what? If you resisted, they would probably arrest you or perhaps even, under some circumstances, kill you.
You know, Michael, one thing I heard the other day, and I know you are up on this, I've got to admit that I'm not sure of all the facts in my next statement or question to you, but I heard rumblings and rumors that the left, the liberals, the Democrats, wanted to impose an annual renewal of you being able to own a gun. In other words, you'd have to go in, take a test, and you'd have to pass whatever qualifications they deem necessary. And boy, I'm absolutely against that.
Well, yeah, one of the proposals on the table, they're not highlighting at this point because they'd like to seize anywhere from 20 to 50 million guns owned by Americans first. But one of the proposals on the table would require you to be licensed periodically. Maybe it's once a year, maybe it's once a few years, but would require you to be licensed periodically, as New York, Illinois require, and California, in order to own a gun. And I can tell you this, since I've been with GOA for 25 years, and since then we have fought every single effort to, even in a small way, cut away part of the Second Amendment. If we had done as other gun groups do and say, no, you can have that concession, you can take away this gun right, you can take away this gun right, guess what? We would be there. We would be to the point in which we have a universal gun registry, which they tried in 2013, and once they have a universal gun registry, they're in a position to require that your gun be licensed, and guess what? If you don't license it, because they have the universal registry, they know where you live. So ultimately, the only way to stop something as extreme as licensure is to fight them in every intermediate step.
You know, Michael, you've been here, as you mentioned and alluded to earlier. You worked with Senator McClure, and you know the state of Idaho, a very rural, a very conservative state, and people live in the outlying areas, but still they're subjected to crime like any other location, and the homeowner with a gun is the only sense of security and literal protection until the police finally can get there. To take away that right of home security, that's going to be absolutely a heinous crime against society.
Yeah, and guess what? If the police are half an hour away, if that guy decides to victimize you and you don't have the right to defend yourself, then you're probably dead as a result of that. We, I think, have recently been looking at a variety of legislative proposals which have gone before the Idaho State Legislature concerning expanding or not expanding Idaho Stand Your Ground rights.
Right.
And it is something which is critically important, particularly if you live sufficiently far from the police, so that they're not going to be there in time to keep you from being shot through the
Well, and let me add to that, Michael. I'm glad you brought that up. Democratic Senator Michelle Stennett said the following, that I would hope that if somebody is going to kill somebody, they would take a second to wonder whether it's a good idea or not. This shows the absolute insanity of the left. In a life or death situation, you're going to pause and you're going to take a second to think about the ramifications. My God, Michael, lives are hanging in the balance here.
Well, I can tell you there's once in my life in which I've actually had someone hold a gun to my head, a loaded gun, and begin to pull the trigger. And that was actually when I was working for Senator James McClure of Idaho. I was in Washington, D.C., and guns were completely and totally banned in Washington, D.C. It was on an urban street. I mean, it wasn't like I was in some ranch 35 miles outside of anywhere in Idaho. It was on an urban street, but it took the police, I think, probably a half an hour to arrive after the fact, after we called them. And sure, it was illegal for anyone to have a gun in the District of Columbia, but guess what? It was also illegal to shoot me through the head.
Yes.
This guy had no problem doing that.
Yes.
So, fortiori, as we say as lawyers, he had no problem having an illegal gun.
You know, let's expand on this a little bit, because just recently, after the horrific and just absolutely heinous action down in Florida of the killing of those students, I understand a lot of the knee-jerk reaction, but some of the signs and some of the protests, and one sign in particular really got to me when they said only our military should have guns. And that was a very chilling placard to me, Michael, because the likes of Venezuela, Cuba, or even going back to Hitler's Germany, that would absolutely be the end of our freedoms here in America.
Yeah, and they call them weapons of war, incidentally. But I was in the military. I was in the Army, in the Army Reserves, and they issued me an M-16, and that actually was an assault rifle. But the reason it was is it has selector switch, which would allow it to fire full automatic. I wouldn't go into a firefight with a semi-automatic. These are lies. These are misrepresentations. And going back to Florida for a moment, basically you have another of these media-generated incidents. The one thing all these school shootings have in common is that you have a disturbed young man who wants to see his face 24 hours on cable news. And guess what? Cable news is more than willing to grant him that honor.
Yes.
So we have a disturbed young man, a media-generated shooting in a school that advertised that it was totally unarmed and that he could get his 15 minutes of fame without any danger that anyone would fire back. It was completely unfortified. It supposedly had one way in, one way out, but the guy just walked into school with a rifle. He was on Adderall, apparently, as a result of the federal IDEA program. He was addicted to violent video games. The FBI had at least 2 credible complaints and didn't do anything about it. The sheriff's office came to his house maybe as many as 40 to 50 times, and they didn't see anything wrong, notwithstanding the fact that he had committed repeated felonies. All these kids who said in retrospect, oh yeah, we knew he was going to shoot up the school, apparently didn't think that they should do anything at a time in which they had the capacity to prevent it. So with all of these factors, we have, the only solution is to seize guns from the hands of 50 million Americans.
Yeah.
That would be ridiculous, except that this media echo chamber has turned this into a mantra.
You mentioned a couple of times earlier in our conversation, Michael, about what I will call spineless Republicans, those that are milquetoast and haven't got the guts to stand up for anything. How in the world are we going to get them to stand up and represent us, the people?
Well, I think you'd start out with this. People in Idaho who are hearing our voice should call their 2 pro-gun senators and tell them to oppose the gun control light Fix Nix bill.
Okay.
I mean, we start with that. That's something that everyone within the sound of our voice can do. I'm cautiously optimistic that what a week ago looked to be inevitable gun control is now, we're capable of stopping it, but we'll stop it only with the support of everyone who's listening to your radio broadcast.
You know, Michael, one other issue, and I'm running short on time, but I want to address this. One other issue that Trump and others have mentioned about raising the legal age of ownership to 21, and I'm sitting there and I've got to say, whoa, wait a minute. We're asking our young men in the military, 18 years of age, to put a pack on the back and traipse through the jungles or the desert carrying a gun representing our country at 18 years of age, but they come back here and they can't protect themselves. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. First of all, I mean, you have an 18-year-old who's given an M-16 or the newest evolution of that, and set loose on the streets of Baghdad, and somehow, as soon as he arrives back in Boise, he can't. He's not able to have the same type of firearm that a criminal who attacks them will be able to have. That's so ridiculous. In some places, police people can be policed at as low as 18 years of age in some capacity. They are not able, in their personal capacity, to have the same sort of firearm as a criminal. But let me tell you one more little secret. and that is, and this is something the media has gotten consistently 100% wrong. Federal law doesn't ban a kid from having a handgun if he's under 21 years of age, or even possessing one, and it doesn't ban a kid from having a long gun if he's under 18 years of age. That we fought that fight in 1999 and 2000 after Columbine, and we won that. What federal law says is a licensed dealer cannot sell him those things. So you want to know, we could change that 21-year-old figure to apply to every gun in America, and the next day, the gun controllers would be back saying, yeah, but they can still buy them from private persons at gun shows, or they can still buy them on the internet, or they can still buy them from individual neighbors. So we have to impose a universal background check in order to close those loopholes. What the 18 to 21-year-old question is just a trap to create a solution that has 3 loopholes which will have to be closed or not closed by more gun control.
You know, and to wrap things up here this morning, Michael, one of the comments, and I'm going to do this out of memory, and I hope I paraphrase it almost correctly, one of the comments made by the left and a liberal that wants gun control said, with gun control, the outline of America is a safer America coming into view. How would you respond to that?
Absolutely. It's interesting. I mean, people always cite 10, 11 million gun homicides a year. Actually, they try to include the suicides in that without specifying they're doing that, but that's sort of fraudulent. So they cite this homicides in America, but if you look at where the homicides are, they're places like Chicago, New York, Baltimore, places that completely and totally ban guns. In states that respect individual liberty, places like New Hampshire, Vermont, Idaho, Montana, their streets aren't running with blood, unlike Chicago's.
Absolutely. You know, you've got to promise me to come back in the future. Michael Hammond, Legislative Counsel with the Gun Owners of America, thank you, sir, and please come back soon.
Well, feel free to invite me, and thank you so much for having me.
I will. Thank you, sir. Very straightforward individual, and I appreciate his coming on the program. Michael Hammond with the Gun Owners of America, telling it like it is. We've got a weather forecast to get on here. I'm running short on time. Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. Number to call, 324-7657. Or you can go to their website, scarrowsmeats.com. Delicious meats. Oh, my goodness. Marinated prime ribs and smoked hams and breakfast bacons and sausages and bratwurst. Oh, man, that sounds good. Anyway, you get a hold of them today because they are the best. Scarrows Meats, north of Jerome, 324-7657. Right now, here's the weather.
Fairly nice day for this final day of February. Here is your weather forecast for Zep at the Ranch. We are expecting partly sunny skies today. Winds out of the west right around 5 miles an hour and a high of 33. Tonight, 30% chance of snow showers after midnight. Cloudy conditions. Winds are going to be picking up, low of 23. For tomorrow, we do have a 50% chance of snow showers in the forecast. Accumulations of less than an inch possible. Cloudy skies with a high of 40. Up that to 70% chance of snow for Thursday. Accumulations of maybe 1 to 3 inches possible. And it's going to be breezy as well. And we are looking at a low right near 33. For Friday, snow showers mainly in the morning, high of 38. And for Saturday, slight chance of snow showers in the forecast again with a high of 35. That's your weather for Zep at the Ranch.
Thank you. Brought to you by Scarrows Meats. Don Scarrow and the crew, 331 North Road in Jerome. They are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. I told you I was running late, and I am. I forgot to mention to you our dear friends at Ark Animal Hospital at 750 21st Street in Heyburn. Yes, they are very caring. about your livestock, your puppy dogs, your kitty cats. They are a mixed animal practice, meaning big or small, they love them all and take care of them all. And Dr. Bill and the crew want to remind you now's the time to get those parvo shots for your puppies. Don't you wait. Get it now. And they will help you with your animals. Ark Animal Hospital, 750 21st Street in Heyburn, 678-1177. They do have the warm hearts for the cold noses. Well, I don't know if these guys have got cold noses or not, but I'll tell you one thing. They darn sure take care of your driving safety with the best of tires and brake service and front-end alignments and shocks and struts and batteries. I'm talking about our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Oh, my goodness, stop in and see them today. Their slogan, doing the right thing matters, and it does, and they do the right thing for you. Service reigns supreme. Stop in and check out all the tires with the different tread designs for your driving, your particular driving habits, and then also check out the best in brake service, front end alignment, shocks and struts, batteries. It's all there. And all 7 locations serving you, like Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, Daniel on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland in Burley. Yep, the best. No brag, just fact. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Holy cow, I've got to get out of here. Tomorrow's Thursday. We got all kinds of goodies coming up on the program, and we want you to be here with us at 8:06. We'll saddle the horse and ride for 3 hours. Zeb at the Ranch on K-Bar 1230, streaming live on the internet, zebbell.com. And remember this, the way things were are the way things ought to be.